All right, welcome back, podcast family. Hope you guys are having a great day. I am actually recording this episode as a video podcast. This will be going up onto the YouTube channel, so I hope you guys definitely go check that out if you'd like to see my smiling face as I walk you through this episode. So today we're going to be continuing our mini series on pricing models for freelancers and small design agencies. We already discussed hourly based pricing, project-based pricing, and retainer-based pricing. Now, in today's episode, we're going to dive into productized service pricing or subscription-based pricing. Now, you might have heard me say in the previous episode, I mentioned subscriptions. That episode is more based on retainers, and this new episode is actually a re-recording. I actually went through and re-recorded, or am re-recording now, this entire episode because there are some things that kind of changed when it came to productized services and things like that, at least in my mind, and I felt like it was a disservice to record the original episode and knowing what I know now about this, and so I decided to go in and record this. So in this episode, we're going to explore the pros and cons of productized service pricing and subscription model pricing, as well as some different approaches that we can take to create a successful pricing strategy, whether you're just starting out or looking to optimize your current pricing structure. There's plenty to learn from this episode. Now, one thing to note for those of you who are watching this video at home, you probably will see me looking off. I'm actually reading partially from a script here. I'm trying to see if this is the right way to do this. So just a small little caveat for you. So join us as we dive into this world of productized service pricing and discover how to create a more profitable and sustainable freelance business for yourself. Let's dive into my own experience with productized service pricing, and then I'm going to share a little bit with you on why I decided to completely re-record this episode and why I think that it's important to think about this pricing model. So if we go back all the way to 2018, this is around the time that my friend and fellow freelancer, Brian Burkett, introduced me to this whole new concept of productized service. Essentially, they're standardized services sold like products with clearly defined parameters and pricing. Now, this is something that confused the heck out of me. I did not understand it. I did not understand how I could use this for my business. I felt like it was something more towards for product designers, developers, and web designers, and things like that. And at this point, I was just on the cusp of going from illustration into more of the branding sphere of freelance. So I was trying to figure out how I could do this, and it really didn't make any sense to me. Up until then, I had been using a project-based pricing model for almost all of my illustration projects. I wasn't really using hourly. I wasn't really doing too much retainer based at this point when I first learned about this term, but the lack of a solid process and structure for my projects meant that each and every project was wildly different from the last, and I was allowing clients to basically dictate the process while I created these pretty pictures. So it was really hard for me to figure this stuff out, to really be able to say, this is a set scope for each one of these projects. This is a set amount of hours for each one of these projects. This is a set price for each one of these projects, because everything was completely up in the air. It wasn't until the fall of 2019 and pre-COVID 2020 that I began to understand, how I could utilize this pricing model for my work. At this point, I had moved away from solely illustration. Basically, I was working a 40-40-20 model where it was branding 40% of the time, illustration 40% of the time, and then just regular design strategy or design support 20% of the time. It was with this pivot that I began to see how I could add more structure to my process and outline every single step for a given project or a given type of project. I tested and retested, based on each new project that came my way, but also with long-term clients, I was able to really define things and figure out my overall process. And it began to really give me an idea of how I could utilize a productized service-based pricing. Now, after the pandemic hit in 2020, I was able to test out my productized services on a range of different projects and clients, from illustration to full-blown branding projects, from small event brands to large television networks and everything like that. And I was able to kind of dive in and figure out what worked and what didn't work. And what I really learned very quickly was things worked with certain illustration projects, but for the most part, a lot of the projects I was working on, especially with older clients that I've been working with for a long time, it didn't quite work because they already had a specific process built in and they didn't want to break away from that. However, with branding projects and more on one-off projects that I was doing with new clients, a lot of them were understanding what I was trying to do and what I was able to accomplish. So it was kind of like a mix where illustration wasn't really the best part for productized service pricing, or at least the way that I was doing it. But branding and web design and design support, those actually did pretty well when it came to doing stuff like that. So the biggest part of the product service is the structure and the rules it takes to keep projects on track. That was something that was missing for years, was that structure for everything. Now, with all of that, all that being said, recently, I actually just learned about a new way of looking at productized service-based pricing, and specifically with subscriptions. A lot of you out there possibly may have already heard about this. This is right now something that's a big buzz in the freelancing community, is this idea of design subscriptions. And so up until recently, I didn't really understand it. I didn't think it was a very good idea. And now that I'm doing more and more research into it, I am actually going to be testing out this model that I'm about to share with you with my own business. So we're going to see, and that maybe this will be a follow-up episode in the future where I talk a little bit more about this, what went well, what didn't, and things like that. So basically, I learned about this method from Design Joy, a guy named Brett. I'm not sure his last name, but I started seeing him popping up on a lot of podcast episodes. He was on The Future. He was on a bunch of YouTube videos. You can actually just search YouTube and Design Joy, and you'll find a bunch of videos popping up. And one of the biggest selling points for him is that he was a designer who was working by himself. Now, I can't, completely clarify that because I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but a designer who's working by himself and making $1.3 million a year doing design subscriptions. And it blew me away. I'm like, still to this day, I'm like, how is that even possible? But I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of research, and I've even gone through and started to work on this myself to try and figure it out for my own business. But what he basically does is he goes and creates a subscription. He allows each one of his clients to go through and submit one by one design requests. Now they can do a big backlog of requests, but he only does them one at a time. They pay, I believe it was $5,000 a month. I think now he's upping his prices because he's getting a lot of increased exposure because of all these different episodes that have been dropping and things like that. But what he goes through is a client comes through, they subscribe to his subscription for, let's say, $5,000 a month. They can cancel anytime, they can pause anytime. They submit as many requests as they want. He actually lists them out as unlimited requests. Then he goes in and he completes each design task one by one. And so that way he's not working on, 20 different tasks for one single project or one single client. And the genius here is, for one, he's creating this backlog of different work, this work that he can go back in, he can check it out, and he can really tackle more manageably. From what he says from the episodes that he was interviewed on, is that he is going through and working with 20 to 30 clients at one time. And so the way that he is able to tackle that many clients, which I've never had that many clients scares the crap out of me, I'll be honest with you. But the way that he does it is by the one by one tasks. So he will have a task come in from a client. He will give them 2 to 3 days roughly turnaround time per task. Some tasks, like if someone comes to you like, oh, I need you to redesign my entire website, it's going to take longer. But for most part, a lot of design requests that he gets are 2 to 3 day turnaround times, sometimes less. And so he's able to schedule out these tasks a lot more easier and a lot more manageable. And of course, this does bring in the idea of subscriptions, right? What is one of the biggest subscriptions that so many people have that they never use? A gym subscription. How many people, listening to this have gone, signed up at a gym, go for a little bit of time, then completely stop and forget about it? So he actually can bank a little bit more on the fact that people are going to get a subscription. He offers them to do a term limit where it's like, a quarter or a year. So you could sign up for a full year, and I believe you pay upfront for the full year. It's discounted because you're doing a longer period of time. But in that time, there could be months where you have 0 design requests. And so basically, he is not fully banking on this, but he can bank on the fact that some of these clients are going to have no requests some months. They're still going to pay their subscription, but they're going to have 0 or very little tasks per month. And so in that, let's say $5,000 a month, let's say a client uses your service for, I don't know, or does like a few tasks here and there. And basically what happens is each one of those tasks, each hour that you work on those tasks equal to $300 an hour worth of an hourly rate. Whereas if you were doing this at hourly based pricing, your price might be $100 an hour. So it's confusing, and you definitely need to check it out. Definitely, YouTube, Google, look up his model, go to his website, and it really explains a lot about it. And I may even do a YouTube video on my personal channel where I talk about how I'm going to be structuring my own business using a subscription-based model. I've been going through and using Figma a lot with that. But anyway, so I wanted to re-record this episode to kind of talk about this because I felt like it was something that was a disservice if I didn't go back in and talk about a subscription-based pricing model. So, but let's actually jump from here. So let's actually talk about some of the pros and some of the cons of having productized services and a subscription-based model. So first off, with a productized service pricing, it can offer a lot of benefits for freelancers and design agencies looking to scale their business. In this segment, we'll discuss 5 key advantages of using productized service pricing and subscriptions. Now, some of these that I'm going to be rattling off, this is a script that was for the original podcast episode. Some of these I may change on the fly. So if you hear me stuttering and you hear me, kind of falling over myself a little bit, that's the reason why. It's because I didn't go through and update this script, but I feel like a lot of what I'm going to be discussing here is going to still resonate for this episode. So, the first pro is increased efficiency. Since you have a structured process for delivering your services, you can optimize your workflow and improve your efficiency. This allows you to deliver your services more consistently and at a higher quality, which can lead to better client satisfaction and retention. So basically, when you have a productized service or subscription-based model, you have a specific scope in mind for the project. You have a set number of hours or time. You have a set price point for everything. And so this is something that you can do over and over and over again. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at this project, at this type of request or task. And so by having this structure to the way that you work, you're only going to get better. You're only going to get faster. You're going to increase your profit margins, etc. And so that kind of leads to the next pro, which is predictable revenue. So let's actually look at the subscription-based model for this one in particular. With a subscription-based model, you have X number of clients that have hired you for your subscription for this month. So you know, okay, let's say I have 10 clients who are part of my subscription. I know that if I charge, we'll just go a lower route for this, let's say $2,000 a month for a subscription. I know that all 10 of those clients who have re-upped, who are going to be requiring my services, are going to equal $20,000 of my time. Is that right? Yes, that's right. $20,000 of my time. And so I'm going to be looking at $20,000. And for the most part, you can either do prepay or post-pay. For something like this, I would definitely suggest prepaying. They have to prepay for the month. And so you're able to predict how much revenue you're going to have. Let's say the next month, you know that 2 of those clients are going to be dropping the service or pausing the subscription for your business. So you know, okay, next month, I'm going to actually be going down to $16,000 a month for this subscription. It might be time to increase the marketing this month, so that way I can fill that gap or even go beyond it. So whereas you had 2 that paused their subscriptions or canceled their subscriptions, in the next month, you had 5 people in that time who signed up. And so now you have an increase of 3 instead of a decrease of 2. Hopefully that makes sense. But I feel like the same thing goes for regular productized service pricing, because you're able to see, especially if you're scheduling things in advance, you're able to see, okay, I've got 3 logo design projects that are in the hopper for June. Great. I know that that's guaranteed income. They've already signed their contracts. They've prepaid. So you kind of like have this idea, okay, I have those 3 projects. I have 4 illustration projects. I have 2 landing page websites that I need to do. Each one of these projects each have a specific price point. They each have a specific scope, amount of time, etc. And so you're able to really go through and schedule out and figure out exactly how much your revenue is going to be for this month. The next pro number 3, is easier to sell. It is a lot easier to sell a subscription or a productized service, especially because it's an easy to follow framework. The easier it is to explain to a client your process and how you're going to be going about doing this is going to make things a lot easier. You're going to be able to package and market these like products. Instead of them being just regular services, they are products that you can package up. Need a logo design done? It costs this much, it takes this much of time, and it includes these specific deliverables. So you're able to really sell these things a lot easier to clients. And sometimes you don't even have to sell at all. You can have a landing page on your website where it has 3 branding packages. You know, it could be something where, you know, you have a landing page on your site and you're an illustrator. Here are 3 different groupings of illustration products. You know, 1 illustration, 5 illustrations, 10 illustrations, something like that. So it's a lot easier for you to kind of sell to your clients. The next pro is scalability. And this, again, is also something that's really good with subscription-based model, is that it's easy for you to scale up these types of services or these types of pricing models, is because of the fact that, all right, you know that you have so much time in a day. You know that you have this much capacity. You can actually open up, like for instance, with my model that I'm currently working on, I am not going to have it to where I'm just going to take on every single client that comes my way. I'm only going to have a certain number of seats for the design subscription. That's because I have 2 clients who have been with me for a while now. They're in a retainer model, and I don't want to take any time away from them. And so I decided, okay, what capacity do I have? I have the capacity to take on 3 to 5 subscription-based clients so that I can still service my retainer clients. So I am only going to have 5 seats. Now, once I get in there and once I start doing the subscription-based model, I can then decide, okay, 5 seats are easy. Then I can go and increase, just opening up 2 more seats in the subscription model. So that's just one way that it's really good and really scalable. There are other ways as well. And then the final pro is increased profitability. And this one is probably one of the biggest ones. This is ones that the whole reason why you want to think about different pricing models is because you want to figure out how you can be more profitable each year, each month, each quarter, whatever it is. And so with a subscription base, with a productized service base, you are able to scale a lot quicker. You're able to figure out pricing, increase pricing and things like that a lot quicker. The person, Brett from Design Joy, he has already talked about how he is increasing his monthly subscription from $5,000 a month to as much as $10,000 a month for new subscribers. So he is able to double the amount of money that he gets each month from his new subscriptions. Now, with that being said, previous subscriptions are staying on the same pricing model, but the new ones are going to be going up. But you're able to figure out what's working. In his example, he talked about how his first subscriptions were $2,000 a month, and then he scaled up to $5,000 a month. And now he's scaling up to $10,000 a month. So you can see how it is very easy to increase your profits, as the demand comes in. So that is all the pros for these pricing models. Let's quick go over it one more time. Increased efficiency, predictable revenue, easier to sell to clients, scalability, and then finally increased profitability, which is, again, one of the bigger pros. So let's now talk about the cons, the negatives when it comes to these models. And for the most part, I think I'm only sharing, I'm going to share 5 of them with you. For the most part, these are definitely cons, but at the same time, I feel like they're easy to overcome, easy to figure out solutions for. So take them with, a grain of salt. So the first con is limited flexibility. So with these services, they are designed and sold as packaged products. And so sometimes it's harder to kind of customize them, or you want to stay away from customizing. You want to be strict on A, B, C equals D. You want to make sure that everything works properly. You don't want to necessarily customize the project based on the client. Now, sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not. If you want to stick with a productized service model or a subscription-based model, then you cannot be as flexible, as you would be with an hourly or project or even a retainer base for that matter. So the second con is risk of overpromising and under-delivering. Now, there's always that risk. No matter what, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in your career, there is always the risk of overpromising and under-delivering. The biggest issue here is that, this can lead to frustration and disappointment for both the client, as well as you yourself. You can be very disappointed in yourself, but what's worse is when a client is disappointed or frustrated, because when we don't have happy clients, we don't have the possibility of more happy clients from that client. No testimonials, no referrals. In fact, you could even get bad publicity, through a tweet or something like that. And we don't want that. We want to avoid this. It's crucial to be clear when you're defining your scope of work, the deliverables up front, but also just talking about the process and having a solid FAQ section below each product. So risk of overpromising and under-delivering, it's definitely a headache. It's something that will come no matter what kind of pricing model you're using, no matter what kind of industry you're working with and everything. There's always that potential for that. We just have to be careful not to let that happen. The next con, and this one, it was a pro, but it can also be a con, and that is scaling. It's easy for productized services and subscriptions to scale. It really is. But at the same time, you still have issues when it comes to scaling. For instance, this can actually lead to the risk of overpromising and under-delivering. You don't know how many clients you're going to be able to service at once when it comes to being a freelancer and using like the subscription model. So I am trying to minimize the impact of that by having a set number of seats of subscriptions. So by having 3 to 5 seats, I'm limiting how many clients can take up that time, and I can actually see how it works within my workload. I think I might even just do 2 to 3 seats to start and kind of like A/B test and figure out what works and what doesn't work. So it's something that you have to figure out yourself, but it limits the scalability, because if you scale way too much, if you go and take on 20 or 30 clients with this model and you have no experience working with this model, you can definitely find yourself burning out very quickly. You can find yourself with a lot of angry clients, and you could potentially even be seeing some sort of lawsuit or things like that. So you want to be very careful, but that is also like the issue, is the fact that it's difficult to really scale this model. It's easy to scale, but it's also difficult to scale in that fact. You have to do the prep ahead of time and figure out what works for you and what doesn't work. So the fourth con is setup and implementation can be time consuming. So with productized services, with subscription-based models, the amount of time that you have to put into just prep for these pricing models can take a while. Creating these parameters and pricing them accordingly takes a lot of time and effort and may require multiple iterations to get it just right. Hence the reason why 2 to 3 clients to start and then expand when it makes sense. Additionally, it can be challenging to communicate these parameters and expectations to clients who are used to doing more traditional pricing models like hourly, retainer, project-based pricing, and things like that. But also, despite these challenges, the investment in creating a solid product or service can pay off in the long run. It can really pay off. And so it can lead to more predictable revenue and more streamlined workflow and so many other things that are very important for not only yourself as a freelancer, as a business owner, but also to your clients as well. All right. And so then the fifth con for this is tough competition. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I just found out about this subscription model and how it works. So has so many other people as well. If you go out and you take a look right now and you happen to go on Twitter or LinkedIn and you start searching design subscription, you're going to see a whole heck of a lot of people out there taking this method, trying it out, and it's going to probably become the next big pricing model. You're going to see this happen a lot. It is not for every single freelancer. It is not for every single client, because you have to think about, especially if you follow Design Joy's model, you're going to be doing one task at a time. You're going to have a big backlog and everything like that, but you're only going to be doing one single task at a time. Some clients, that doesn't work for them. They want multiple things, especially like, for instance, both of my retainer clients, they have tons of requests at once. I am working on multiple projects and requests at any given time. And so a subscription makes 0 sense for them at all. It's something where somebody actually asked me over the weekend when I was talking about subscription, using a subscription model. They said, do you think your current clients might switch to that? And I told them, no, it doesn't make sense for all clients. And so you have to really, take that with a grain of salt. But there's so many people who are out there who are they are utilizing this new subscription model, testing it out. It's going to become probably the next biggest thing that you see for freelancers and small agencies. So you have to be careful there. You have to see, and that's why I suggest if you're going to do a subscription-based model, don't just do that fully. Test it out, 2 to 3 or 3 to 5 seats at a time. See if it works for you, but continue your retainers, continue your hourly based pricing or project based pricing, or just productized services. Keep those things going because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to become so saturated that everybody, all the clients start turning away from subscriptions, especially if they have bad experiences with some of these, bad characters out there. And there will be bad characters who are going to take advantage of clients with this model. I can guarantee it. And it may even end up ruining this model for Design Joy and for anyone else out there who ends up doing this. So let's again recap the cons. Actually, let's go back and recap the pros first, and then we'll recap the cons. Again, pros: increased efficiency, predictable revenue, easier to sell, scalability, increased profitability. Cons: limited flexibility, not flexible at all, does not do yoga. Risk of overpromising and under-delivering, difficulty in scaling, so you see both sides. Setup and implementation can be time-consuming, definitely very true. And then finally, tough competition, high-volume competition, more than anything. So now let's kind of talk about some different approaches to productized services and subscription-based pricing. And so we're actually going to focus more here because I've kind of talked in breadth about the subscriptions, and I feel like it's really kind of straightforward there. But I think here we're going to talk more about the productized services. So the first approach that you can kind of do with this, and this is kind of like the straightforward part of productized services, is fixed scope packages. And with this, it's basically this approach involves defining a specific set of services or tasks that are included in a package along with a fixed base price. It's basically the definition of a productized service, and this approach is effective for freelancers who want to provide clients with clarity on what they're expecting to receive for a set fee. And so I always throw this out there. The first approach is usually like the most straightforward. The next one is tiered packages. And I think this is, and the next one is tiered packages. And this approach is probably something I see a lot of agencies using, especially in pitches with productized services, with project-based pricing, and a lot of other things. And so basically what this does is this approach involves creating different packages or tiers that offer different levels of service or features at different price points. This approach, can be very effective for freelancers who want to appeal to a wider range of clients' needs with different budgets and, so on. But what you basically do, and this is kind of, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, was that you can go through and you can set up, like, let's say with branding. Let's say with branding, you have multiple tiers throughout like a logo design project. So you have, maybe they just need a single logo, right? So that's your tier 1 is just logo. Tier 2 would be logo plus color palette, logo plus color palette plus typography. And then your third tier is all of those plus a style guide or plus design or brand elements, like symbols or patterns or things like that. So you can kind of like tier them out and like have it to where, okay, which one of these tiers works best for you? And some people, they do this to kind of frame more so, they try and push their clients to like a middle tier selection or something like that. So they don't focus so much on the deliverable side of things, but they focus on, okay, this tier has more revisions in it. This tier has more hours in it and things like that. So there's different ways you can kind of go about that. With the next part, and this one actually works for both the subscription and also with product and service, and that is add-ons and upgrades. So this approach involves offering additional services or features that can be added onto the base package for an additional fee. A good example of this for subscription is something that was also on Design Joy's website, which is he offers for an additional, I think, $999 each month, Webflow development. And so with that, you're able to have him develop things, let's say if you're going through a website redesign, he'll do that. And that's honestly not bad to get that knocked out. Now, I don't know if that's, another layer. So you have one at a time design services. Then you have at the same time, he also does one for one Webflow services. So they're stacked on top of each other, or you have to kind of pick and choose which one. I have no idea how that works with him, but you can add stuff like that. Webflow development. You could add copywriting. You could add strategy. You could add something along those lines. I'm running out of ideas here. Editing, video editing, animation, things like that. All of these different things can easily be add-ons for your productized services or subscription. And then, of course, the last one. This one is, I almost wasn't going to include this one in here because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you're trying to keep control of keeping things like unified and consistent across the board, but customized packages. So the ability to customize the productized service or product, if you were to do that, increase the price of it. In order to customize the service, you have to pay double, maybe not double, maybe 50% on top of the normal price or something like that. But basically like offering the ability to create a custom package for your clients' needs and things like that. In that case, it should definitely cost more than a regular productized service. If they're wanting, we want, 3 more rounds of revisions. For one thing, nothing should take 3 more rounds of revisions. But if that was the case, then increase the price. Don't just have the same price or a similar price to what the normal package would be. Each approach, that I kind of mentioned here, and let's quick go over it. Fixed scope pricing, tiered packages, add-ons and upgrades, and customized package. Each approach has its own pros and cons here. And it's important for freelancers to consider, their business needs, their client needs, and pricing goals when choosing an approach that works best for them. In the end, though, the key to success with productized services and subscription-based pricing is to focus on delivering high-quality services that ensure that your clients receive value for their investment. It's very important that you do that when it comes to these things. You want to have happy clients. All right. Whew. This is definitely a long episode. I do apologize to my editor who has to go through and edit not only the audio but the video as well. Hopefully I've made it easier for them though. But in conclusion, productized services and subscription-based pricing can be a great way for freelancers and design agencies to streamline their services and increase their profitability. It provides a clear structure and pricing model for clients while also allowing for scalability and more efficient workflow. However, like any pricing model, it comes with its own set of challenges and considerations that need to be carefully evaluated. So moving forward, here are 3 suggested paths for listeners. Number 1, evaluate whether this pricing model is right for your business. Consider the strengths, consider your strengths, consider the service offerings that you provide and clients' needs that you've seen over the time that you've been freelancing to determine if a productized service or a subscription pricing model aligns with your goals. Just because you see everybody jumping off a cliff, don't go jumping off a cliff, even if there's a pillow of money below it. Test and refine your process. Developing a productized service requires a lot of experimentation and refinement to ensure it meets clients' needs and produces the desired outcomes. Continuously test and refine your process to maximize your results and improve the customer experience. This is very important. You always want to be testing and improving. Do not find yourself doing the exact same way that you've been doing it for 2 years. Like, you want to improve the way that you work, the way that you do things, especially for your clients. You want to give them the best possible experience and results that you can. And finally, if you haven't, go back and check out the other 3 episodes of this mini series: hourly based pricing, project-based pricing, and retainers. Make sure that you get a good grasp of what each pricing model allows for, and make sure that you choose what works for you. And it could be a combination of multiple ones that we've discussed here on this podcast. All right, so this is going to probably be the last primary episode of this mini series. I was going to do an episode on value-based pricing. However, I have not used that pricing model specifically. I am not the biggest fan of how a lot of people sell it, and so I am not going to actually talk about it in this mini-series. If you would like a great resource for value-based pricing, go check out The Future and Chris Do. Great discussions, constantly sharing a lot about value-based pricing. And so I would definitely go check him out and check out his videos and his podcast for learning on value-based pricing. So that is it for this mini series. However, there will be additional bonus episodes coming out throughout the summer where I talk about little things on pricing and how to price work and things like that. I don't think they're going to be as long as this one. This one's going to be like 45 minutes long. I do apologize for that. But I hope that you got some nugget of wisdom out of this. Stay tuned for more insights and strategies to help you succeed, with your freelance journey, regardless. And whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast, please make sure to subscribe to this podcast. And especially if you're on YouTube, hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. All right, that's it for this episode. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me ramble on. And as always, please remember to stay passionate, stay positive, and stay creative. All right, everybody, talk to you guys later, and bye.